I want to be clear about something before I explain what happened on platform Kesh 7. We were not amateurs. 31 stations across 4 contested sectors in 11 years. Fuel platforms, relay nodes, 2 atmospheric processors on the outer Deathworld belt. We knew the geometry of these operations, the way a shipwright knows a hull, the access points, the crew rotations, the communication windows, the gap between a distress ping and the nearest response vessel. We knew how long it took a corporate security contractor to spin up a response. We knew which platform managers paid quickly and which ones stalled. We knew how to calculate a job before we ever cut thrust. 31 stations, not one of them had gone badly. I am Oryx San, vessel captain of the Toreth. I have been a licensed salvage operator, a contracted route surveyor, a freight hauler, and, for the past 11 years, something the Interworld Compact classifies under 17 different criminal statutes. I tell you this not as a confession. The Compact already has everything it needs. I tell you this because the people who heard what happened on Kesh 7 and decided it was a story about human violence have misunderstood it entirely. It was not a story about violence. It was a story about arithmetic. Platform Kesh 7 sits on the edge of the Verath corridor, a refueling stop for mid-tonnage freight runners working the outer lanes. 3 permanent crew, 1 rotating maintenance contract, a fuel reservoir worth roughly 40,000 compact credits at current transfer rates. Standard operational skeleton, the kind of installation that exists because it is cheaper to keep it running than to decommission it, and cheaper to ignore a quarterly ransom than to install a security garrison. We had hit 2 platforms in the same corridor the previous cycle. Both paid within 6 hours of our initial contact. The math said Kesh 7 was the same job. I docked the Toreth against the service lock at 0340 platform time, when the night rotation had the deck to itself. My crew, 4 of us, moved through the access corridor and had the platform's 3 permanent staff in the common room before any of them had cleared their bunks. Standard procedure. Calm, professional, minimal disruption. The kind of operation that ends with a wire transfer and a strongly worded incident report filed 3 days later, when everyone is home safe. The 3 permanent crew were verath nationals, compact citizens, mid-grade service workers, the kind of people who have done this calculus before and know that the correct response is compliance. They sat in the common room and said nothing, and I respected that. The 4th person on Kesh 7 was the maintenance contractor. She was human. I did not know that immediately. She came out of the service crawlspace under the main fuel array in a gray maintenance jumpsuit with an equipment harness across her shoulders and a diagnostic stylus behind her ear, and she looked at my crew in the common room, and she said nothing. She walked to the equipment rack on the far wall and set her tools down in a specific order, and then she turned around and leaned against the rack with her arms crossed, and she looked at me. Not afraid, not performing calm either. Just looking at me the way a technician looks at a gauge that has registered an unexpected reading. Assessing. Deciding what the number meant. Kesh platform ransom operation, I said. Standard opener. Clear the variables early. We'll need your communication access and the transfer authorization for the fuel reserve. You cooperate. We're gone in 4 hours. She said, That was it. Just that. A small sound. Not agreement, not refusal. I had never heard that particular sound from a hostage before. I told her again, with slightly more precision, what we needed. She was quiet for a moment, not nervous quiet, considered quiet, the kind that belongs to a person sorting variables rather than managing fear. Then she set the stylus down on the equipment rack beside her tools and looked at it for a half second, as though confirming something she already knew. She reached behind her ear, pulled out the diagnostic stylus, and turned it in her fingers once. Then she said, Someone will have filed a Deathworld claim by now. The Compact's automated distress flag system catches any unscheduled lock breach at a registered corridor station. The flag goes out in real time. She paused. You didn't know that. It was not a question. I told her the Compact response time for this corridor was 6 to 8 hours minimum, and by then the transfer would be complete, and we would be 3 jump points gone. She looked at me for a moment, the way you might look at someone who has just told you a ship can fly without fuel. The response time for a compact contractor is 6 to 8 hours, she said. The response time for a Deathworlder claim is different. The claim doesn't go to a contractor. She turned the stylus in her fingers again. I'm from Toreth 9, Class 14 designation. That flag goes to a different registry. I knew what Class 14 meant. Every captain working the outer lanes knew. You learned it the way you learned the mass limits on the corridor jump gates. Not because it was relevant to daily operations, but because ignoring it was the kind of mistake you made exactly once. I told my crew to check the platform's comms system and confirm our jamming package was active. DOS, my comms operator, moved to the communications panel and ran the confirmation sweep. Standard drill. 30 seconds. The board came back clean across every monitored band. DOS confirmed it. The human said, Here is what I did not understand at the time, and what I have since had explained to me in considerable detail by a compact legal examiner who found the gap in my knowledge professionally interesting. The compact's automated distress system does not operate on a single channel. The standard breach flag goes out on commercial frequencies, the ones our jamming package was designed to cover: compact contractors, corporate security, local enforcement. The package cuts all of it. This is common knowledge in our line of work. You buy a commercial-grade jamming system, you cover commercial-grade frequencies. The Deathworld claim beacon operates on a completely different band. It is not a commercial frequency. It was not designed for commercial use. It predates the current compact communications architecture by roughly 60 years, and it was built into every registered corridor station during an era when the primary concern was not pirates or ransom operations, but something considerably more dangerous that no longer requires discussion. Our jamming package did not cover it. It was not designed to cover it. The beacon had gone out the moment DOS confirmed our package was active. We had been broadcasting our location, our dock lock signature, and a live crew count for 22 minutes by the time I understood this. I want to be precise about what happened next, because the accounts I have seen in the compact records misrepresented in ways that frustrate me. No one on my crew was harmed. I want to establish that clearly. We were not given an ultimatum. We were not threatened. No weapons were drawn against us. No demands were made. No communication of any kind was received from the vessel that docked against our external service port at, and I am reading from the compact's own record, 0519 platform time, 139 minutes after our arrival. The hatch opened. One person came through it. She was human. Female, I think. I am not always reliable on human secondary features. Medium height. She was wearing what I later learned was standard-issue Toreth 9 militia gear, worn over what appeared to be a personal base layer she had been wearing for some time. Her hair was pulled back with something that appeared to be a length of electrical cable. She was eating something out of a sealed ration container with a small fold-out utensil, and she did not stop eating when she came through the hatch, and she did not look at my crew first. She looked at the maintenance contractor. The maintenance contractor said something to her in what I now know was a Toreth 9 dialect. I did not understand it. The soldier, if that is what she was, and the compact's record uses that word, so I will use it too. The soldier made a short sound that was not a word, and kept eating. Then she looked at us. I have been in this work for 11 years. I have sat across negotiating tables from corporate security officers, from compact enforcement, from competing salvage crews, who wanted the same contracts we did, and were not interested in a friendly resolution. I understand threat. I understand the geography of a room when someone in it has decided the situation is a problem to be solved, rather than a negotiation to be conducted. That is what I felt when she looked at my crew. Not anger. I want to be precise about this. There was no anger, no heat, no escalation, no performance. She looked at us the way a maintenance tech looks at a corroded seal, something that is in the wrong place, that will need to be moved, that is not particularly interesting in itself. She took another bite of her ration. DOS, who had run 31 operations with me, who had never once broken composure in a live environment. DOS made a sound I did not recognize, and I realized he was backing toward the wall. I said something. I do not remember exactly what I said. Something about the compact, about transfer rates, about the economics of the corridor. The variables I had used to open every operation for 11 years. The architecture of the calculation, the thing that had always worked. She looked at me while I said it. She was still eating. When I finished, she turned back to the maintenance contractor and said something else in the Verath dialect. The maintenance contractor answered. The soldier nodded once. A small, considered movement, the kind you make when an instrument has confirmed what you already expected. And she sealed the ration container and tucked it into a pocket, and she said to me, in compact standard, 6 words. The wire transfer goes in reverse. She did not elaborate. She did not explain the consequences of non-compliance. She did not position herself, or reach for anything, or change her expression in any way that I could read as a threat. She didn't need to. I sent the reversal authorization. DOS processed it. It took 4 minutes. No one in the room spoke. When the transfer cleared, the soldier walked to the equipment rack along the far wall, picked up the maintenance contractor's toolkit, and held it out to her. The contractor took it. She pulled the diagnostic stylus from behind her ear and slotted it back into the harness pocket where it belonged. Then she walked back toward the service crawlspace and went back to work. The soldier watched her go. Then she walked back to the hatch she had come through, opened it, and left. That was the whole of it. I have had time, since then, to think about the arithmetic. When I run the calculation on Kesh 7, the crew complement, the claim registry, the beacon band, the response time, the number I keep arriving at is 1. 1 soldier. That is the entire size of the Deathworld response to 4 armed operators and a blocked communications array. 1. Eating a ration pack. This is what I did not understand about Deathworlders before Platform Kesh 7, and what I understand now, in a way that is difficult to articulate to anyone who was not in that common room. The threat was not the soldier. The threat was the math. The threat was the certainty with which the maintenance contractor had said, someone will have filed a claim. Not I hope, not maybe, not if we're lucky. Someone will have. Past tense. Already done. The calculation already finished before I had even processed the variable. 31 stations in 11 years. I was good at arithmetic. I understood that clearly, and I thought I had run the numbers on every relevant operation. I had not included Deathworlders in my model. That was the error. Not a moral error, not a strategic error in the conventional sense. A mathematical error. A missing variable that invalidated every calculation I had made for 11 years. The Toreth is impounded at Veth Station. I am in compact custody. My crew is, as far as I know, uninjured. When the compact legal examiner finished explaining the beacon band architecture to me, she asked if I had any questions. I had one. I asked her how long the maintenance contractor had known. From the moment she came out of the crawlspace and saw my crew, how long had she known the claim was already filed, the beacon already broadcasting, the response already in transit? The examiner checked the log. 22 minutes before I understood any of it, the contractor had already set her tools down on the equipment rack, already crossed her arms, already decided the number the gauge was showing her, and found it exactly what she expected. She had known from the moment she saw us. That is what I think about when I go back over the operation. Not the soldier. The contractor, leaning against the equipment rack, saying, while the beacon broadcast our dock lock signature across a frequency we didn't know existed, to a registry we hadn't accounted for, toward a response time we had never needed to calculate. That is the variable I missed. I will not miss it again. Though I suspect, under the circumstances, the point is largely academic.